Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Cobb. I am on the national leadership team of Move to Amend. Move to Amend is a multiracial, multi-ethnic coalition of thousands of organizations and hundreds of thousands of ordinary people who are coming together to demand a constitutional amendment to abolish the illegitimate, totally made up by the courts idea that corporations and other artificial entities are persons with constitutional rights, and the equally odious, also totally made up idea that money is the fundamental equivalent of political speech. Now, these two doctrines are related but separate, and I want to take just a moment to flesh it out. As a civil libertarian, as a lawyer and a constitutional scholar, I know, Move to Amend knows, Representative Nolan knows, and hopefully all of us know that as human beings, we have constitutional rights. Those rights are inherent. They are inalienable. We have them because we exist as human beings. And what that means is the political process, the democratic political process, cannot infringe upon our rights to express ourselves, to worship or not worship as we see fit, to associate together as one another's. These ideas of constitutional rights mean there are certain things that the political process may not interfere with. In other words, the rights of minorities, racial minorities, ethnic minorities, political minorities, are to be respected through the political process. And here's the rub. When the court creates the idea that a corporation, an artificial entity created under our state legislative process, a tool, nothing more, when that tool can claim constitutional rights, corporate lawyers can come into court and challenge and overturn environmental protection laws, worker safety laws, public health laws, campaign finance laws. There's not a single law that we, the people, can pass that is not subject to being overturned. And the corollary, if money is speech, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that the wealthy can basically attempt to buy elections, and they are attempting to do it. Thanks to the Supreme Court's decisions and the progeny of decisions, elections are becoming auctions in this country. And ordinary people are losing confidence in the faith and the integrity of the electoral process itself. Enter Move to Amend. We were 12 people in a living room in 2010. Today, we're 386,000 people and growing every day. Thousands of organizations have endorsed and joined our effort. 600 local communities have passed resolutions of support. A big shout out to the state of Minnesota, who was at the cutting edge of many of those local resolutions where city council members vote to support our call for an amendment. And 16 states have called for a constitutional amendment. And my favorite objective number, over 300 times have we at Move to Amend put this issue on the ballot to let local voters vote on the issue. In other words, not just city council members, but actual citizens voting. Do you support a constitutional amendment to abolish these legal doctrines? Folks, we've won every single one of them. We haven't lost yet. And yes, that includes San Francisco, California, Boston, Massachusetts, Madison, Wisconsin, the liberal bastions. But we also win in Salt Lake City, Utah. We won in Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is the hometown of Republican Tea Party Governor Scott Walker, where they haven't voted for a Democrat for president or Congress in over 40 years. Move to Amend was on the ballot there, and we won. We won in the state of Montana by almost 75% of the vote. All I'm trying to say, folks, is that ordinary people are in agreement, and it is broad and deep agreement about this campaign. And why? I want to conclude with my remarks with this observation. There is going to be disagreement and debate on policy issues. The political process should be debated. We should, in fact, have a debate. We should grapple together. We should engage in the political discourse. That's how our democratic republic is supposed to work. But friends, when the court turns a political question around how corporations should be treated or how we should engage in campaign finance law or any other political question. When the court illegitimately turns a political question into a constitutional law question, they've just turned we the people from active participants in our own government into mere spectators, where the courts are actually, and the wealthy elite are actually in control of our society. These two doctrines, corporate constitutional rights and money is speech, have literally stolen our sacred right to self-government. And as a lawyer, what particularly galls me is that they're using the legal system to legitimize the theft. The only way that we can do anything about this is to build a mass movement that is capable, strong enough to amend the United States Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. Enter Representative Rick Nolan, who has championed this effort by introducing House Joint Resolution number 48, a proposed constitutional amendment that will abolish the idea of artificial entities claiming constitutional rights and the idea of money as speech. And it should surprise no one that Representative Nolan is actually championing this effort. Representative Nolan actually returns to Congress, uniquely poised to actually give us an insight onto what is actually happening. Served his constituency in rural northern Minnesota and the Duluth area in the late 70s and has returned. So it is my great pleasure and distinction to introduce to you Representative Rick Nolan from Minnesota.
Thank you, David. Well, thank you, David, and thank you to the hundreds of thousands of people who've got involved here in the move to amend all across this country, and the millions of people that you have mobilized in liberal towns, conservative towns, Republican states, Democratic states. It's really quite phenomenal here, what you've been able to do to mobilize Americans to reverse Citizens United and to take back our government. Isn't it time, once and for all, to establish that corporations are not people, that money is not free speech, and that our elections and public policy making process is not for sale to the highest corporate bidders? The billions of dollars in dark money that have been unleashed as a result of Citizens United has poisoned our campaigns and our election process with negative advertising that not only pollutes the airwaves and denigrates our candidates, perhaps more importantly, it discourages good people from running for public life. It distorts the truth. It discourages voter turnout. It perverts and corrupts the entire public policy process. And if allowed to continue, will in fact destroy our democracy. That is the simple, hard truth of what we're looking at here. And if we don't break this corporate stranglehold on American public policy, quite frankly, it's going to be difficult to get anything else done. And the fact is that the rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poorer. The middle class is getting crushed. And all this corporate money in politics, at the end of the day, the simple truth is it means more for the few at the very top and less for everyone else, and at the expense of the many and the greater good of what's good for our country. So that's why we're here today, with the support of millions of people all across this country who are signing petitions, they're going door to door, they're voting in support of passing resolutions urging the Congress to reverse Citizens United with a constitutional amendment. We're in it for the long fight. It's going to be a tough fight, but it's a fight and a journey that's worth undertaking. Good and successful movements in this country have always started with ordinary people who commit to accomplishing great things. And so it was with ending slavery, with child labor laws, environmental laws, women's suffrage, civil rights, the progressive income tax, Social Security, Medicare, rights for the disabled, you name it. This movement, as David pointed out, it transcends labels, It transcends political parties, it transcends regions, and it transcends generations. We're in it for the long haul. We're in it to win it, and I'm proud to play my part and my role in this journey. We will succeed. America's future and American democracy is dependent upon the success of this movement. Thank you.
Well said. Can you see why we have a champion in Representative Nolan? It is my distinct pleasure now to bring up George Friday. George Friday is also on the national leadership team of Move to Amend. She also serves with the Bill of Rights Defense Committee and is a long-distance runner in social justice movements in this country. There is probably not a peace, justice, environmental core activist who has not been touched, whether they know it or not, by some of George Friday's work. So as I bring her up, I want to frame her perspective on what it's going to actually take to win a constitutional amendment. We are in it to win it, as Representative Nolan says. It is going to be a long fight, and it's true that it's been 25 years since there has been a successful constitutional amendment. But historically, I want to remind you of something, folks, and that is, if you look at the arc, constitutional amendments tend to come every 20 to 30 years. We're due. George Friday, what is it going to take to win?
Movement.
A movement. So I want to welcome George Friday to the podium.
Right. Good morning. It's my honor to be here and to share remarks with Representative Nolan and David Cobb, my longtime colleague. And I'm here to share that we got work to do. And yes, it is a long-term effort, but it's a long-term effort for all of the cookies, the whole pie. For many people who live in this country, for folks who are living in the country that may not be documented, for people who live in the country who haven't ever experienced their full rights, and there's plenty of us. Democracy has not ever been a real, active, functional reality. And it can be with your work. We all have to do our work. Democracy isn't a gift that we're given, it's a right. And with that right comes the responsibility to do a little bit more than just go to the polls every now and then, or volunteer for a campaign, write a check, or make some phone calls. It means being vigilant about what democracy means, about holding sacred that democracy, and doing the work. And that means we, as the people in this country, we, the people, have to do the work to make democracy real. In this case, with Move to Amend, it does mean building support where you live, where you work, where you play, and where you pray for the 28th Amendment. And that requires a movement. And a movement means that you're talking to people who might not be of the same political persuasion as you, or may not have the same cultural background, race background, may not have the same faith or sexual identity as you, but it does mean talking to people who have at stake what we all have at stake, our democracy and this country. And I'm not willing to give it up to the corporations. And I don't think most people are willing to give it up to the corporations because it's ours. We have to work for that. We have to struggle together. We may have to fight, but we have to stay in it together. And that's part of what it means. So if you're watching this, if you're looking online, go to movetoamend.org and identify a place that you'd like to enter the conversation. And start building relationships with people who might seem different than you on the surface. But ask them about their country. Ask them about what they'd like to see happen in this country in terms of democracy, in terms of who makes the decisions. Do you want Walmart to make the decisions? Or do you want us to make the decisions? Do you care about where your textbooks are coming from? What's going to be happening when you go to college? What's happening with a student loan? If you'll be able to afford a house? If we'll be able to retire? All of these questions that we all care something about, we get to answer together in a functional democracy. But we have to do the work. We, the people, have to do the work to make sure we have a functional democracy. So those 12 of us who were in a living room in fall of 2009, I correct my colleague, it wasn't 2010, it was fall of 2009, in Marin County, California. I don't go to California often, so I remember these things. And it didn't feel like we were doing something huge. It didn't feel like we were entering a movement that is akin to the abolitionist movement or the suffrage movement or the civil rights movement. But here we sit now, 380,000 plus people more, and hopefully more every day, who are saying, no, corporations don't own this country. We rule this country. This is ours. We built it. We made it. Our ancestors bled for it, and you can't have it. So thanks for all that you do. And we got work to do. Thanks.
Thank you, George Friday. So I think that we have Representative Nolan for a bit, so if there are any questions, we can entertain that now.
Where do you think the most resistance will come when you present this?
Well, it'll come from the same corporate moneyed interest who are the beneficiaries of the current Citizens United decision. There were 24, 25 billion Wall Street billionaires that made in excess of $25 billion. I mean, that's a salary equivalent of 400,000 or 500,000 teachers.
Good Lord.
There are just trillions of dollars in corporate profits stashed in banks. There's over $2 trillion in corporate profits stashed overseas that they're trying to figure out a way to bring back into the United States. So clearly the corporations have benefited enormously from their ability to pour these hundreds of millions, and now they're talking in terms of billions, in dark money into campaigns and elections. And they benefit from it at every level, every day. Just last week, if you can believe this, the House of Representatives passed a bill to eliminate the gift and the estate tax, okay? Even though 99.9% of the people in America are not liable for any gift or inheritance tax upon their death. And so this bill provided $270 billion in tax benefits to the 5,500 richest men and women in America. 5,500. The upper 1% of the upper 1%. So I offered a simple motion to recommit with an amendment, because they wouldn't allow any other amendments. You can always offer a motion to recommit that said, if you were convicted and found guilty of defrauding the federal government of the inheritance and gift taxes that you owed, that you would then not be eligible to receive that tax relief at the end of your life. And they voted that amendment down. Even giving millions, the people who have been convicted of fraud, trying to cheat the taxpayers out of the rightful gift.
Not trying to, apparently they did it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm reminded of the great political philosopher Lily Tomlin,
Oh.
who once said, no matter how cynical I get, it's hard to keep up.
Right? It is. You can't make stuff like this up.
Any other questions? Yes.
The $64,000 question, if I may ask it, is how do you get Congress, as it's made up today, to vote themselves out of power?
Well, that is the inherent problem, and why the campaign election reforms of a wide variety of issues are difficult. I was reminded when we got a number assigned to our Constitutional Amendment 48. You know what I was reminded of? The great speech that Hubert Humphrey made to the 1948 Democratic National Convention on behalf of civil rights. And it was many years later that the civil rights laws were finally enacted. So we have a long history of a long struggle. And the fact that so many people of every ilk and every stripe and every generation, every region are mobilizing behind the move to amend gives me great confidence that we will ultimately be successful. But you have to keep in mind, I've always argued that it's much easier to elect someone who shares your views and your values than it is to change the mind of someone who doesn't. So this issue is going to be decided at the ballot box. If not in the next election, the one after that. If not that one, the one after that. But it will happen. It has to happen. The American public are demanding it. And, the forces of money and regression can hold back the tide from time to time, but inevitably they are forced to yield, like it or not, and that will happen in this case.
George, any thoughts?
Not anything that doesn't sound violent or troublemaking. I don't want to get you in trouble, bro. But to your answer to the $64,000 question is we put them out, we kick them out, we take over. We take over. We do that at the ballot box. We do that at their neighborhoods. If you go to every bought elected official and let everybody know, here's how much this fool took. Here's how much money this fool took. Put it in their paper. Stand outside their church with a sign. Person that went to your church took this much money from this corporation. Do you trust him? Do you trust her? Do you want them representing you? No. Get somebody real. And you can look to your neighbor, look to the person next to you in the seat. They can run and do a better job. It's a representative democracy, which means if you're not representing us, you got to go. And we will just make that clear to people. And we'll do that through the movement. We'll do that. We'll consistently do it. We'll be backing that message up, backing back the politicians we can trust. Short list, growing short every day. But that's what we'll do. Yes.
Frederick Douglass famously said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will." So I want to be very clear. Move to Amend engages the ballot box, and we do so with authenticity and seriousness. And we are in the streets, we are in the pool halls, we are in the bowling alleys, we are everywhere and growing stronger. Yes, we're collecting signatures, 386,000 and growing. Yes, we are at the ballot box winning over 300 times at the local and county level. Yes, we are in state legislatures. Yes, now thanks to Representative Nolan and Representatives Huffman and Grijalva and Allison and Cartwright, we are actually in Congress now. And you know what else? We are running Pledge to Amend, where we are going to candidates for office to put them on notice that this political question must be answered. And whether you're running for president or Congress or state legislature, county commissioner, dog catcher, if you're running to represent people, we are going to be there to ask that political question. And we're not stopping there, because we're running Vote to Amend, where we're going to voters to say, put your money where your mouth is. Let these elected or candidates for office know that your vote is not to be trifled with. You won't be taken for granted, that you're making demands of them. And it doesn't even stop there, because we are beginning Resist to Amend. Imagine thoughtful, dignified campaigns of nonviolent civil disobedience, where we are engaging people to think about how they can withdraw their consent from this corporate coup d'etat. The point is, there are a myriad of options, and as the civil rights movement said, get in where you fit in. So we are making lots of options available to people. There are a menu of things that one can do, and we are serious about winning this. Yes, sir.
Are the amounts of money that elected officials accept from corporations easily accessible? Are you going to put them online?
Yes. The short answer is that to the extent that we can, which is to say we are tracking with OpenSecrets.org, the Sunlight Foundation, and other groups that are actually tracking the money that is required to be disclosed, either to candidates or through independent expenditures. But it's really important to note what Representative Nolan did earlier. Dark money is money that now is not even required to be disclosed in any fashion. Again, the cynicism that comes into play, that there are representatives of Congress and in state legislatures who are now objecting to even disclosing where their money comes from.
Can't we just call it bribes or dirty money? I mean, I'm not crazy about dark money, like I said.
Fair enough.
And no disrespect, but you know.
None taken.
That's one of the
your
cultural
question,
things they like doing.
I do think that it's important. Let's just acknowledge that these billions of dollars that are being spent they're not contributions. At best, they might be considered investments for which they are expecting and receiving dividends in the terms of foreign policy. But I appreciate the correction that my colleague made. Let's not actually call them that. Let's just call them what they are. They are bribes. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Supreme Court has legalized bribery in this country, and we've had enough. Yes.
How much support does this amendment have in Congress right now? What do you anticipate it'll take to get more support in the future?
You know, my guess is not my guess, I'm certain of it, the overwhelming majority of the Democrats in Congress are supportive of it. And so it's gonna take some changes in the elections. As I said earlier, it's infinitely easier to elect someone who's responsive to your goals and your mission and your objectives than it is to change the mind of someone. But we've got a good, strong, solid. I mean, if we could pick up another 40, 50 seats, why, we'd be in business. And that seems like an awful lot, but in my lifetime, I've seen changes of 70 and 80 in a single election. So I'm reasonably optimistic. And then it's important to note that over the period of time in service in this Congress, we will continue to position the issues to help people understand the consequences of Citizens United. For example, the inheritance tax. I would like to see candidates in every district challenging those who voted to give the $270 billion tax break to the 5,500 wealthiest people in America. And oh, by the way, that's $270 billion that you, the people, will have to pay to make up for it.
I'm saying.
And then put them on the spot. So, why are you doing this? And what is the role of corporations in funding your campaign? Is this payback time? Is that what you're doing? Because it makes no sense. When you get out of California, New York, and Florida and Texas, but most states are lucky if they have one or two people in that category. 5,500 out of a country of 300 million? Come on. So we'll be positioning all these issues to help facilitate a better understanding of the consequences of Citizens United.
It gives a whole new meaning to the word obscene.
Yeah.
For me, as a
Isn't
person who doesn't think of many things as obscene.
Yeah.
But that is.
Yes, sir.
Among the special interests, of course, is the huge budget of the military-industrial complex. And now it seems we're about to embark on the TPP as well. So we're still talking about coming from the grassroots up through local elections as well as congressional elections. But can you address?
Well, I
that
can, and
huge-
I addressed it briefly in my opening remarks. And until we reverse Citizens United, it's going to be very difficult to fix any of that. To fix the tax policy that benefits the rich at the expense of the many. To change a military-industrial complex policy that, again, benefits some multinational corporations at the expense of the many. And a wide range of spending priorities that place corporate welfare ahead of human development. And so it's just so critical, whether it be trade policy, tax policy, spending policy, military policy, to reverse and change any of these policies, all of which desperately are in need of change and new direction until we reverse Citizens United. Because the simple truth is, and one hates to admit it, but political scientists study these campaigns and elections, and generally, the one with the most money gets the most votes. And guess who's got the most money? The multinational corporations and the billionaires in this country. They know that. If you have to spend $1 billion, in winning an election, and you get back a $270 billion tax break just on your inheritances, that's not hard to figure those numbers. That's why we got to reverse this thing. It's destroying the country, destroying democracy. And, having said that, there's a number of things we need to do to complement that. But Citizens United lays the foundation for enabling us to do all the things that we need to do to restore democracy here in this country.
Any final questions? Well, please join me in thanking Representative Nolan for championing the We the People amendment.